everybody, this is Michelle Fox and welcome back to The Simple Quilter. I'm really excited about today's topic. Today's topic is going to be about organizing, decluttering, and keeping the messes in our quilt rooms under control so that we can maximize the use of our quilt rooms and do what we really love to do, create beautiful quilts and quilted items. Now, before we get started, I want to show you the quilt behind me. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video titled How to Make Log Cabin Blocks Using the Log Cabin Trim Tool 2, and I have made this quilt top out of those blocks. I really enjoyed making this quilt top. It went together really fast. It was fun to do. The blocks were accurate, and I just loved putting this quilt top together. And it was a lot of fun putting the different possible design layouts up on my design wall. And I finally decided on this one. I don't really like square quilts, and I wanted to have 6 rows by 7. There's 42 squares here, and they were each 12.5 unfinished size. So I'm going to step back and show you this quilt. Now, I also want to let you know that I will provide a link in the description below that will link to the video and the tool that I've used to make the quilt behind me. Now, this year I am going to have a totally new approach to organizing, decluttering, and maintaining nice order in my quilt room, because this is what's typically happened in the past. My room gets piled up. I keep piling it up. Stuff is falling out of the cabinets when I open the doors. When I open a drawer, I have to remove stacks of stuff to see what's in there. My work surfaces get so piled up that I can't even find a space to work. And then I will take several days or even a couple of weeks to declutter and organize my quilt room. And I really don't want to do that anymore. So this year I am going to be focusing on looking at keeping my quilt room organized and decluttered as an ongoing process. And I think that's a big mistake I've made in the past. I think it needs to be ongoing and not some final destination we get to, because I've done that. You know, I've gotten it all cleaned up and I've enjoyed it for a few weeks, and then it's right back to the same big mess. And I don't want to get to a point where I don't even want to come in my quilt room to work, because I want to be here doing the thing that I love, and that is making quilts and quilted items. So let's get started on looking at some organizational tips that have been tried and true and have worked for me. Alright, so one of the first tips I want to talk about is keeping like items together and having designated places for these items. For example, I use lots of notepads when I'm in my quilt room. I use them almost every single time. So I have 2 containers for notepads. Alright, now these are my 2 utensil caddies. They hold my writing utensils and a lot of my sewing tools. Now this one sits by my computer and my sewing machine, and this one sits on the cabinet close to these. Now again, I may have to take a few steps to get these and bring them to my workspace, but that works for me. Now, a couple of things I want to share with you. The other day, I could hardly get any more utensils in here. I couldn't really find what was in here because I had so many in here. So it's important to declutter your containers. 3 days ago, I had 4 containers of writing utensils, and I have narrowed that down to 2. All right, another storage container that I use, this is just for my leaders and enders, and it sits beside my sewing machine. And when I cut scraps, I cut these and I fill my container up. Now, I had a lot more fabric and I could have piled it high, but what happens then is things fall over, the pile falls over, it gets onto my work surface by my sewing machine, and it makes it cluttered. So keep each container under control and don't overfill each container. So again, make it usable. Another Another tip that works for me is to label your containers, and I always try to use clear storage containers so I can see what's inside, and I will have a pretty good idea just at a glance what's in there. Now this is something new that I've tried. I recently decluttered one of my cabinets that is difficult for me to get into. It's a deeper cabinet and it's down low. So what I did is I cleaned it out, got rid of the stuff I wasn't using, then I made a list of what's in the cabinet, and I've just used a protective sleeve and I just taped it to the inside cabinet door. So now I can see at a glance what's in that cabinet. Okay, now it's important for me to maximize my storage space within my quilt room. I also try to take advantage of vertical storage space. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my thread storage. So these are just aerofill containers that hold most of my thread that I don't use frequently. These hold new spools of thread, so I keep all of my threads together. And I just like this system because if I need thread, I know exactly where to get it. But I also have a vertical storage unit that I use for the thread that I use on a more daily basis. So let me show you that. Okay, so here is where I store my other thread, and it's just on a little thread holder that sits to the side and directly above my sewing machine. So this works really well for me. The next vertical storage space that I wanted to show you is where I store some of my rulers. Now I've recently purged my rulers. I got rid of a stack of rulers that I had duplicates of that were old and I felt like they were outdated. I got rid of some that I'm just not going to use anymore. So that rack looks a little bare, but that's another vertical storage unit that I use to help me store my rulers. And I love the location of this because it's just to the side from my cutting table, and I just have to take a step or two to get to it, and I have my most commonly used rulers there. Okay, and let me just show you how I store my other rulers. This is just a vertical ruler storage unit that I use, or I guess maybe it's horizontal. It sits on a cabinet and it sits over by my scissor and tool caddy that I just showed you. It's out of the way because these rulers are used less frequently, but they are in a storage unit that is easy for me to get to them and fits nice on my cabinet. Now, this is a new storage idea that I'm trying for my ruler, for my small specialty rulers. I really need to make space in my storage cabinets. So I wanted to get some of my specialty, well, I wanted to get all of my specialty rulers out of my cabinet. So I've always used 3-ring binders to help me get organized. And so what I did is I just purchased these plastic pockets. They have a snap so it holds in place. They have a label built in already. And I've put my rulers, my specialty rulers, in these cabinets. Not cabinets. I put my specialty rulers in these pockets so they're not going to fall out. Now in this storage unit I have my Log Cabin Trim Tool 2 specialty ruler, and it was too big to fit in one of these sleeves, so I've just put the instructions inside there. Now here is the last vertical storage unit that I want to show you and talk about. This is my magazine rack, and I really like this, and I try to keep this container as the only one where my magazines are located. Now right now I have a couple areas that I do need to go through and clean out some of those magazines, but what I'm working towards is just having magazines here. And when this gets full, then I've got to purge. So I want this just to be my only space for magazines. Now the unit that I just showed you that holds my magazines, that was just a storage unit that I got from Hobby Lobby. And I do want to show you this. This, I don't have it labeled, which I should have it labeled, but this is something I started a long time ago. And when I found articles or quilt patterns that I wanted, I would cut them out, put them in these plastic sleeves so that I didn't have to keep the whole magazine. But instead of having a stack of magazines, I just have one little notebook. Okay, I have another tip I want to share with you, and that is to get rid of things that are broken or that you're not using. Let me show you this example with the irons. This iron was in my cabinet, and this iron was in one of my cabinets. This iron and this iron are both steam irons. Neither of them hold water, so they're really no longer steam irons. I decided I would use this one for fusible projects that have that iron-on fusible stuff, because sometimes it does mess up your iron, so I kept this in the cabinet. However, I don't ever use this. I don't ever get it out of the cabinet. I've always just used this one and turned the steam off. And if something got on the sole plate, I cleaned it. Well, now this iron has no steam. It leaks and all the water runs out. And I thought, oh, I'll just keep it and use my spray bottle. Well, the problem is I like to use steam when I press and iron. So there's no reason to keep either of these. So I'm getting these out of my quilt room, but I've held on to them for a long time, and that's kind of silly. It's taking up space that can be used for something else. And having less clutter makes our spaces more usable. So I'm replacing both of these, getting rid of those, getting this out of my cabinet. It's going on my ironing board. It is a wonderful little iron. It is cordless. It has great steam. And now instead of having 3 irons, I'm going to have 1 iron. This is the first video in a series I will be doing on organizing your quilt room, and I want to keep you updated on my new approach that's going to be the ongoing approach to managing our space and making it more usable, efficient, and uncluttered. I hope you've enjoyed this video today. This is a topic that's really exciting for me because I just want my space better, cleaner. Anyway, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. As always, leave a comment. I love to see the comments and get the comments. I usually tell you what my next video is going to be about, but I'm still undecided for next week. I have some ideas in mind, but I haven't quite decided. So until next time, have fun quilting.